these scars?
That's a great question. Let's find out together. Before we can answer how scars form, we need to figure out where they come from. First, let's define what a tissue is. A tissue is a group of similar cells working together as one unit. In between these cells, we find what is called the intercellular matrix. There are four main types of tissues: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. The epithelial tissue is what forms the covering of all body surfaces, i.e. skin, and it also lines body cavities and hollow organs. This tissue also makes up the glands within our body. Basic functions that the epithelial tissue performs is secretion, protection, absorption, diffusion, and filtration. Epithelial tissue can be classified by looking at two characteristics: the size and the shape. Looking at the shape, the tissue can either be simple or stratified, meaning simply a single layer or multiple layers of the cells. There are three shapes of epithelial cells as well: cuboidal, squamous, and columnar. Each of these epithelial classifications has their own characteristics and functions within the body. Next, let's take a look at connective tissue. Connective tissue is the most abundant and diverse type of tissue. It binds structures together, it forms support, it stores fat, it transports substances, and it also helps to repair tissue damage. Connective tissue usually has a good blood supply, which means that it will heal more quickly when it becomes injured. The three most common cells found within connective tissue are fibroblasts, macrophages, and mast cells. Fibroblasts produce fibers by secreting proteins, macrophages function as defense cells, and mast cells prevent blood clotting and promote inflammation. These mast cells are what cause us to have allergic reactions to certain substances. More specific types of tissue found within the broad umbrella of connective tissue are cartilage, areolar tissue, adipose tissue, bone, and blood. Areolar tissue is responsible for binding skin to underlying organs. Adipose tissue, more commonly known as fat, is tasked with providing a protective cushioning for our bodies, as well as insulating and storing energy. Cartilage is a more rigid form of connective tissue that provides support and protection. Cartilage is most commonly found in our ears, the soft part of our nose, but it also lines the ends of our bones to protect them from scraping and rubbing against each other. Bone is the most rigid connective tissue. The job of the bone is to support body structures, protect important organs, and serve as attachment points for our muscles. Inside of our bones we find bone marrow, which is what produces new blood cells. The job of these blood cells is to transport materials between cells, for example, oxygen. Now, onward to muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is composed of cells with the special ability to shorten or contract, which allows for movement of body parts. This tissue is highly cellular, meaning that there is a large number of cells present. These cells are long and slender and are sometimes called fibers. There are three types of muscle tissue: skeletal muscle tissue, smooth muscle tissue, and cardiac muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle tissue is found in muscles attached to bone, or what we usually think of when we think of muscles. The way that these muscles move is by voluntary movement, meaning that you can consciously control the movement by thinking. In contrast, smooth muscle tissue is controlled involuntarily. This tissue is found in the walls of the stomach, the intestines, the bladder, the uterus, and blood vessels. Cardiac muscle tissue is found only in the heart, as the name implies. Each cell within the tissue is connected to each other by intercalated discs, which allow for signals to pass through the cells very quickly. Finally, let's take a look at some nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is found in the brain, the spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves. The cells within this tissue are called neurons, and they pass electrical impulses along axons. After looking at each of the 4 tissue types, let's take a few minutes to learn about scars. Scarring is the result of a system that has learned to respond extremely quickly to a wound, and they are created by the epithelial tissue. When you get a cut or a scrape that goes deeper than the first layer of skin, your body quickly begins to administer first aid. The fibroblasts are the first responders. They quickly begin to lay down collagen and pull the edges of the wound close together. This initial layer of collagen is what prevents the wound from being open all the time. The top layer of collagen is placed in a very unorganized manner. The collagen fibers in normal skin are arranged in many random directions, kind of like plywood. In scar tissue, the fibers align in one single direction, which is what makes scar tissue look different than normal skin. At this point, new cells begin to form from the bottom of the tissue upward. This determines how, quote, normal looking the scar turns out. If the cells at the bottom of the wound are damaged or not normal, then the new cells that form are also going to be damaged, since they will be copies of that damaged cell. Scar tissue has different characteristics than regular skin as well. It's not as flexible, it does not have a normal blood supply, and it lacks sweat glands and hair. Depending on what sort of injury you sustained, the tone of your skin, and the conditions in which the wound heals, you may get different types of scars. 5 main types of scars are atrophic scars, hypertrophic scars, contracture scars, keloid scars, and stretch marks. Atrophic scars are sunken down into the skin and are formed when skin or muscle is removed by an injury. A common cause of this type of scar is acne. Hypertrophic scars are red or purple in appearance, are slightly raised above the skin, and tend to become flatter over time. Keloid scars are very elevated. These scars form when the body produces extra collagen in a scar, and oftentimes they grow larger than the area of the original injury. Stretch marks are unique because they are not caused by injury, but rather occur when the skin is stretched rapidly. The scar tissue is sunken slightly into the skin, but also tends to fade with time. Now that we've learned about the different types of tissues, and learned about the different types of scars and how they form, it's time for the moment everyone has been waiting for: scar prevention. We'll look at the most popular scar reduction cream first, Mederma. Mederma is an oil-free, water-based scar treatment gel that claims to help get rid of dead skin cells and promote new skin growth. It contains ingredients that work to fade the appearance of the scars. The results of using Mederma are mixed. It's typically found that using Mederma will get about the same results as using petroleum jelly, which is a much cheaper alternative. Ultimately, there's really no harm in using Mederma, but at the same time, there's no real benefit to using Mederma over other topical treatments. Researching several other scar reduction products, it seems that most of them yield about the same results. They typically use exfoliants to work away the top layer of dead skin cells and will also work to hydrate the skin cells to give them a healthier look. If the scar is very mild, these treatments may be able to, quote, heal the scar and make it practically unnoticeable. However, if the scar is very large, if the skin is very damaged, these treatments will not be able to completely get rid of your scar. In the situation where I have accidentally scratched my face and have the prom coming up in a few weeks, I wouldn't bother to use Mederma or another scar reduction cream. It's already unlikely that a scar would form from a small scratch like that, and the reduction methods simply work by doing things that I can do myself. If I was really concerned about a scar forming from this scratch, I would just continue to practice good skincare. I would exfoliate and hydrate my skin every day and probably get the same results as one of those fancy creams. And as a last resort, I might buy some petroleum jelly and use that, but I certainly wouldn't waste my time or money searching out these fancy high-end reduction creams.